want to learn, you have to first listen.
Come on in and take a seat. This is episode 19 of Matt O'Donnell Wants to Know, a podcast to feed our curious minds. I'm Matt O'Donnell, and I want to know who you are. I want to know what you do. I want to know why Southwest Airlines is messing with all of their policies that make them the unique airline they are. I know what they say, but I want to know really why. You know, they really just need someone there like the guy at Costco who refuses to let the hot dog go over $1.50. If we could get hot dog guy at Southwest Airlines to stop the policies from changing, we may have world peace. I want to know what matters to you and why. I've spent the past 15 years as a professional bass player. That means I've covered a lot of miles and talked with a lot of people. I've found that the person deeply interested in a topic is often more interesting than the topic itself, and the bigger picture is found in the details. What a fantastic excuse to share conversations with people who I think are great. Today on the show, I will be talking to my longtime friend and longtime boss, singer-songwriter Risa Binder. Risa and I had a lovely chat in which I tried to find out some things that I hadn't learned in our 11 years of knowing each other and working with each other, and also some questions about modern times and modern things in her life. Thank you for your continued support of the show. I've talked about this before, but it really gives me the warm ooey gooeys inside when I see people listening to random episodes of the show. Obviously, I can't see like who the person is that is deciding to listen to random episodes, but I would assume that if there are a bunch of listens in one day to the latest episode, but then all the way back at the beginning, starting from the trailer through episode 1, 2, and 3, that all of those got one listen in the same day, I would assume that's the same person. And also, I just want you to know that I am proud of you for figuring out how to listen to me for that long. That is a big chunk of dedication for one day. I mean, I'm a talker. That's why I have a podcast, but I'm not sure that I would listen to that many hours of me in one day. Thank you. You are seen. You are appreciated. You are loved. I do hope that people that start at the beginning make it up to this point because like any podcast show, I think that the work is getting better, the flow is getting better, and with every episode, it seems, I feel like when I hit the submit button that I have done my best work yet. It's insane that we are about to hit episode 20. I would say something gushy now, but I will save it for 2 weeks from today. Risa Binder and I met in 2013. My pal Kyle Wilkerson, who is currently the drummer and hairstyling extraordinaire with Jordan Davis, he and I were playing a fair little bit at the time together, and he hooked me up with a gig with a songwriter out of New York. I didn't know her music. It turned out to be Risa. We played a gig at the Hard Rock Cafe downtown, and I have been playing with her ever since. Yeah, that was like July 2013, and yeah, that's a long time. Hey! Risa is an exceptionally talented artist, whether she's recording songs that other people wrote or things that came up out of her own head. There is a light and an authenticity that comes out of her that is, for my money, unparalleled in the music business. It should come as no shock to anyone that the music business is full of shady people out to behave any way that they can to get ahead and make a buck for themselves, but Risa is the complete opposite of that. Exactly who she is on the street, talking to you, chatting, is what she's like in the biz. It is wildly refreshing, and it is the thing that has kept me on staff for 11 years. We've played from tiny stages to the corner of Antique Archaeology, the store owned by American Pickers star Mike Wolf, to festival stages, to countless theater dates with country music icon Ronnie Millsap. Just honestly, everywhere and anywhere in the past 11 years, we've done the gig. Her latest release is a song called Good Advice. It is available exclusively for now on the platform Even. If you want to go to her Instagram, that is Risa Stuff, RISASTUFF. You can find out all about it there. But for now, here is my talk with my very good friend, Risa Binder. I'm just not that kind of person.
I understand.
Either. I just said to Amanda the other day about, I've been trying to get my hands on some shiso, which is like, it's Japanese. It's in like the mint family. It's a great herb. It's impossible to find any in town from like anything. But I was like, next year I'm just going to commit to having an herb garden.
I could totally.
And, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll even get like handy and build some like raised beds. And she was like, we can just buy a raised bed. Like you're
she
not,
knew.
yeah, like that's ambitious, but it's not going to work out.
Like I'm not going to look outside and see you measuring.
Yeah, it's not going to work
bed.
out. Super great. Yeah.
But there was actually really cool because we only have that deck.
Yeah, right.
There's really cool like sheet metal type things too that you can put like on a deck actually and make the whole thing happen. There's some gardening show. I think it's on the Joanna Gaines and Chip Gaines channel. And it was like, we watched the entire series. And he was like, I'm going to build. So similarly, he's like, I will build this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I should know better that I won't, but I'm like, that is one thing where I'm like, well, it's just going to be a box. Like, how bad could that be? Like, how
hard is it?
Yeah, how hard can I make that? So, diving right in.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you something that I don't think that I've ever said in front of you.
Okay.
But it's something that I tell people. I was literally about to say, I think I know what face you're going to make and what sound when you hear me say it.
Okay.
But I am often to say to people who either have met you or haven't met you that in Nashville particularly, but just in the music business overall, that I have never met anyone who is more authentic than you are.
Holy crud. Okay, that's cool. I don't even know what to say. Okay.
Yeah, there isn't a single thing about you that isn't as advertised, like as a real person.
Oh my gosh. It's so fun. You're making me think of something actually. So that I used to perform at the Bitter End in New York City before moving here. And I had a guy come up to me once who was like, you're too touchable. Like there's not really like stars are not touchable. And and in my mind at the time went to actually someone who everyone aspires to be. I feel like Garth Brooks, who seems very touchable. That sounds really weird, but you know what I'm saying when I'm saying that. But like,
no, I know.
But I'm like, I'm gonna disagree with you, kind stranger, sir. Like I was like, we need people in the industry who you do a show and someone's like, they could be my friend or they could be like, it needs to be real. And the stories that you're telling should appear real or be real so that you can connect. I think that's my favorite thing is connecting.
Period. Yeah, which is funny that you say that because, just in the past couple days, God, I don't want to say it this way. I was going to say star of the moment, but I don't think that it's like, it's going to be momentary. But, Chapel Roan just put out that whole thing.
I read it last night.
Talking about how like when she's off the clock, which is also admirable.
I thought it was really admirable of her.
Well, and I only say because it's counterintuitive to that, right? Like she is in that way saying that she is not touchable.
Well, physically, right? Like, do not touch me. Understood.
That part, because that part did come up in that, but also just kind of like from downbeat to downbeat of show, like it's like we are all together and all this, and then kind of like when it's not.
Let me have my life Yes.
Which is sort of not the same thing I'm saying, but it's just interesting that like I agree with you, but then I also agree with her.
And I do too, because I just feel like this is something you're called to do. Not everybody wakes up and wants to do this, but you're called to do it.
Everybody wakes up and wants to do it.
They do. And then when they try to do it, they're like, why am I doing it? No, but it's like, but you're called in different ways to do it. Like I actually, just to be real, like I didn't know about Chapel Roan until maybe the last 6 months.
No one did. I mean, that's the thing is like, I forget where I read it, that it went from, not that she was like,
she's been working for 10 years, I read.
Yeah, but not that she was like in obscurity and in January or like 6 months ago. There was a report that said something like she was getting like 2 to 3 million streams a week, which is a lot, of course. Like that's amazing. That is good indie level. But now she's at like 48 million streams a week.
Which makes sense. She should. Her record is incredible.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I say that to say like you shouldn't feel bad for not knowing. Like that is sort of the overall trajectory.
But the visual of her, because she is. She like changes costumes so beautifully. They all fit. Yeah. They're all parts of her. I can see that. She's very authentic to who she is, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And but that's what initially got me. I'm like, that is so cool. That girl, who is she? And that the visual of her led me to her music. And then also, maybe because we're similar, I think I heard it in a coffee shop, and I was like, "Who? What did I just hear?" Like, I'm like, "Oh, it's Chapel Roan."
She is sort of an intersection of a number of different things that I like. She's sort of like the original thing I said. I was like, she's kind of like Lady Gaga and Hayley Williams.
Yes.
Like she has a lot of like King Princess stuff as well.
Yes.
Like, and a sprinkling of like Taylor stuff as well. Like it is like a very like cocktail thing. You really have to think about it to like mine those things. It is very like authentic and it is very original, but then it's not that she's derivative.
No.
It's more like, it's just kind of like when you think about it, you're like, there are all these parts of other artists that I like, and it's all sort of just like wrapped up in here.
And I can tell, like, I feel like she loved everyone that you said too, and it just kind of became a part of her as she was growing up. Like, I like this, I like that. I'm going to piece that together, which is what we do as writers too.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, it's when I made my first record in town. Mm-hmm. There was an old song. It's old, but it's like, oh, I cry sometimes when I'm lying.
Oh yeah, What's Up by the Four Non Blondes.
Okay, thank you. Of course you would know it. Of course. And I guess a lot of my melody line, I think someone called out. They were like, it sounds like this, and I'm like, well, that makes sense, because maybe that's one of the first songs I remember hearing that there was something about the melody matching the words so well.
Yeah.
That woman is an incredible writer.
Yeah, Christina Perri.
Mm-hmm. No.
Not Christina Perri. Jesus. Linda Perri.
Linda Perri, yeah. I was like, oh, this melody is... I love when the melody and the words make sense and are unforgettable.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I love that story about when they did Christina Aguilera's Beautiful, because she wrote that. And
I think I forgot that.
That was like the scratch take.
The Beautiful was a scratch take?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my God. Christina is a beast of a singer.
But that's another song where like I should kind of like dive through Linda Perri's catalog a lot more, because that is another song that does that thing where it's like, nope, the melody and the words definitely
they just
find their thing. But anyway, the point being like the like authenticity thing is that like everybody in music sort of is putting on a show, like even just socially, like, and then the real person is like whatever, and like you end up getting these weird glimpses of people, and then you realize like, oh, that's the real them, and that's like not what they're putting out there. Well, that is 100% not what you do. You are exactly the person
I am
that you project to be to people, and not just on stage, because like for every like weird bubbly thing that you are, like that shit happens on stage just as much. And
I can turn to you and be like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm going to say it. And your face is like, oh God. Okay. Yeah. Or you used to tell me to not talk, just move into the next song. Or you would say like song 4 is when we talk. Risa, talk then. Okay.
That was happening in a time when it would be like, when we were like running out of time, and we was like, oh, well, we didn't play these 4 songs.
because
of a 8-song set.
Because I can't stop talking. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, but some of that is in sort of another thing that I think about you, and it's a hard thing to say, well, because it sounds derogatory, even though it's not derogatory. And it's just a way people perceive things in putting different musics in their different boxes. Like, you grew up around theater.
I did.
And you are not theatrical when you perform, but it's one of those things. It's much like what I said about Chaperone, where it's like, it doesn't come across in a certain way, but then like once you frame it in a way, you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. I think that once you would tell somebody that has seen you do a show live that you have theater history, it's like, oh, well, that makes sense. And it's in the way that in that you tell stories and like move and have like a sense of like stage.
My very first, I would call her like my theater teacher. I'm like from Columbia, Maryland, and there was a dinner theater called Toby's that I did shows from when I was 6 years old or 7 years old. And she is incredible. She actually taught Ed Norton. She's unbelievable. And she would always say to us, your job is to tell the story. That's it. Your job is to tell the story.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, huh. And she's like, and you're not doing your job if you're not connecting, but by telling the story. But I was like, gosh, that's so similar to when you write a song and you're on stage. Your job is to tell the story so that people can take that story of what you're singing and does that apply to them in any way in their life right now or in the past or whatever. And so that's kind of where I think about that, where that comes from, because yeah, I grew up in musical theater, so things could get really big, but nobody wants to. I mean, well, I don't want to say nobody, but like when you have your own material, it took me so long to feel that my songs stood up to the cover songs that I would choose.
Sure.
So I'd almost want to like, just let's get to the cover that everybody knows just because I know they'll like that one. And then something from us performing so much together flipped. And I was like,
yeah,
okay, well, it's there. And my songs are there too, and we can have a great time with all of it, Yeah,
and I will say that is a couple things. That is one, it is the maturity in your songwriting, and also, like over time, like especially like I'm trying to think about moments where like I have been on stage with you and watched, say in March, something like Be Just Okay in terms of reaction, not like what we were doing Be Just Okay, but like what was like coming back.
Yeah.
And then in like May, it was all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, that's a thing. And it was that you were just getting more comfortable with songs, but like they were newer songs and like those were managing to like click.
Yep.
And stuff, which is, should be everyone's tale. Also, what you were starting to say about story is it's weird that we encourage songwriters who are not theater people to do that all the time, but no one ever thinks of it as being like relatable.
True.
Or correlatable. Is that a word? That's probably not a word.
Oh, it sounds smart though. Good job.
But it's always funny too, like to watch singers or, songwriters or, artists like do a theater stint. Like, Sarah Bareilles isn't a good example because she wrote the music for Waitress, like, but she didn't open it as in the role. Like she went and did it later, but was able to use like her ability to tell stories as a songwriter that way.
Yes. No, there's definitely a difference of the angle that you're coming at it from.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking like, the background. So the truth is just to go back for a second, I was never good at sports. I'm a really good skee ball cheater. Like I can tell you how to get the pocket from clicking it a certain way. Anyway,
man, like I want a skee ball lane so bad.
Oh, invite me over. I will.
If this house was taller, if there was any room that could support like a quote unquote regulation skee ball lane, I would own one. Like it would be what I would do with all my time.
I know what to look for on like Amazon. Like just like what?
I've looked. They are thousands of dollars.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, darn. Well, I'll be. We could split it.
I need to keep my eye on like foreclosing arcades.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, that's the only sport I can be good at or cheat on and be good at. But anyway, theater was my sport.
Yeah.
And it was like a way to feel like a part of something, and then it's just such an incredible feeling. But I feel the exact same way about when I'm on stage with you guys, and it's a team sport.
Yeah,
and you
for
can
sure.
tell when an artist doesn't feel that way, or when they do, and it's pretty clear. But
you can feel it in the band too.
I'm sure. But that's the thing. It's like I tell people a lot. Like anyway, I could go on about that, but that there's no way you could have a show without the people supporting you, playing with you. There is no show, and so it's everybody's in it together. Or you don't have a show.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever done non-musical theater? Have you ever been in like just a play?
Yes, a long time ago.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh my God, and I'm gonna blank on the name of it, but it was Hello Dolly, but the non-musical version. It's gonna take me a second to think about what.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually didn't know that was ever a non.
Yeah. I have to think about it. Sorry.
I mean, the fact that I don't know of it, don't let me second guess you into thinking that that's not real thing. But I was like, or was it? What's that? Was it My Fair Lady?
It might have been My Fair Lady.
Yeah, Pygmalion, which is the non.
It wasn't Pygmalion,
okay.
But so in high school they would do like straight play, which is I think that's what they call, and then a musical. Yeah. And so I did one. I did all the musicals, and then did one play, which I loved. But I'm trying to think of in New York if I auditioned for. It's so funny in New York. I mean, I still continue to audition, but at the beginning I would not read the breakdowns, and I went once for something. What was it? Aladdin.
Oh.
And I like walked in. I was like, well, they could pick a princess, and I walked in, and literally someone behind the table was like, really? Because the break, and I was like, sorry, what? And it was so embarrassing. This is the truth, that I was like, oh, okay. And I just sang my little song, and the door said push, but I was pulling. And it was one of those moments, and they're like, push, Risa. I'm like, okay, great. Have a great day. Bye. And you just are like, that happened today. I think there is so much, you have to have a sense of humor in this, because there is so much rejection that it is comical, actually.
Yeah, of course.
And so, so I think back to, I've definitely had a lot of rejection, but you have to laugh about it.
Although theater, I was thinking about like auditioning for for music gigs on bass, and I've never gotten a gig out of an audition. The only things that ever like come close there are artists I've played with where we had to play together, but it was like my gig to lose. It was sort of like, hey, do you want to get together and like see if this is cool? And then
while you're playing on stage live, like doing one?
No, like we would like just play like basically a rehearsal. Okay. So it was an audition, but there weren't other people. It wasn't like
right, okay, got
me
it,
versus other people. It was just sort of like, the gig is yours as long as it isn't weird when we play together.
I got you.
So that's probably the closest thing to like an audition that has ever worked out to turn into touring. Other than that, they've all been bad. I remember one, I was like ecstatic because like the drummer that was in the set of like people auditioning was someone that I played with a lot. And so it was like, cool, I don't have to worry about like, what's this guy doing or whatever to like make myself sound good. I was like, cool, we'll play together. That'll be great. But I also had a gigantic black cold sore at the time. And I was like, well, yeah, for a female artist, that's just not gonna, that's probably like a little gross for that. And it's like, oh, well, and I played really well on that audition. I mean, I would assume.
Did you call it out and you were like, this is not anything of a big deal?
I tried to be like, hi, how are you doing? Yeah, but you just made me think of like in asking about like doing a play versus a musical in the way that like I have never really acted. The closest I ever came to being in a play was...
You would actually be really good, P.S. Okay, keep going.
In my senior year of high school, because like I would play in the pit, like we would do
I love it.
Piano, bass, and drums and like hire a couple like trumpet players and stuff like that out from, like pros. So I went to a little Catholic school. So I was the only boy that could sing or whatever that was not already in the musical because I was playing bass.
Oh my gosh.
And my friend Matt was the lead in South Pacific and he got mono.
Oh no. Oh my God.
And so there was like a minute where it was like, hey, you're going to need to start learning how to like be the lead in this musical, because like there was no one else. There was no one else to do it. Like it was covered, and it was like, you should have to like step in. And I was like, oh no, this is. Did you have to learn it? I had to start learning it. Yeah. And then luckily it did not work.
Oh my God.
Or it worked. Sorry, I shouldn't frame it that way. It worked out that he came back.
Oh my gosh, you're reminding me of something completely off topic too. I'd always wanted to do the Fantastics, and there's only, I love the show, and there's only one girl on the whole show. Okay. Yeah. This is my favorite. I haven't told the story in a long time. And there's, the rest are two older gentlemen and my best guy friend, Jeremy Goldman. Hopefully you're listening to this. Got to play opposite me. I got to do it. I got to be in the Fantastics. My grandmother, who was like 91 at the time, came to see the show with my mom. Okay. It was intermission, and she says to my mom, "When is Risa coming out?" And my mom's like, "There's only one girl. She's been in the whole first act. That was her." Like, it was completely. But I'm bringing this up because they told me at the beginning of this show run, it's a 3-month run, that they're not going to hire any understudy for me. So I better not get sick. So I was like, what do you do? And that, as a singer, I'm like, I just asked other like singers that were way above me, and they're like, you get throat coat tea and you throw a Halls in it every night before you warm up. And I was like, and I did not get sick for 3 months. And the notes you sing in that musical are so high.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty acrobatic.
Anyway, I was like, well, no understudy. And my grandma had no idea who I was. So there's that. Okay.
But the point I was trying to make was like, I had never thought about before if people that are weak actors, but like good music people for musicals, not necessarily weak, but like people that just want to go and sing the songs in a musical, like the notion of people that are, because there are people like that. I know people like that, and then,
well, they bring people into runs of musicals just that are more famous, but may have not ever done it before in their lives. And that's crazy, because it is like a musical is crazy. It's like a sport. Like you have to do it so many times a week. And
talking about that, it makes me think of I think every high school person in a musical has had to deal with, when it's like, musical season, trying to compare themselves to a sport, and schools like disrespecting it versus like a sport that like there's no one's ever like happy about that. And it's it's like, but at the end of the day, at least I know in my high school, more people came to see the musical on that weekend than anyone was going to see games.
No, it's so true. And like, just to share, like before moving to New York and Nashville, like I choreographed high school musicals, and my favorite part was having football teams decide they're going to be in it. I got to teach guys how to tap dance, and they're like, I didn't even know I could do this, and it is the best. And then
that's the Mr. Holland's Opus thing, right? Like,
oh, totally.
Yeah, how like they had no people, and that's how
they got exactly. And then they're like, I like this. I actually like being in a musical. And someone who'd never been in a musical in their life. Anyway, I'm all about musicals.
So that's a natural progression, because I think this is something I didn't know. Like, how did you go from doing a lot of like theater work into wanting to just be a song performer?
Sure. So I moved to New York City first before Nashville, and I would always write songs about like boys I had crushes on and things like that, and not share who they were really about or whatever. And just, but a
very Carly Simon of you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you. I just actually saw that musical, Beautiful. It's so good.
Oh, cool.
In New York, I would blow off steam in a way. Like auditioning for Broadway shows is hard. And I remember thinking, if you just show up, which is a lot of what this whole thing of being an artist is, just showing up. Just show up. And I would show up to these auditions and do my thing, but then heard about the Bitter End, I'm trying to think of the name, and Rockwood Music Hall, and these places where you could go and do your own material. I was like, I have stuff. I think I put an ad on Craigslist that I needed to find a band, and I met these people, and they were like, hey, and it turned out like I still like I'm friends with some of them from New York today. So I started doing sets at the Bitter End and at Rockwood, and there was a crew, just people that you kind of know the people that audition. It's the same way that you know the people that are in the music world. They're small little worlds. And so it was like this natural transition of I had to kind of say a prayer to myself. Like, I kind of felt like I was in a space where I needed to continue to write and put it out there in that way. And that musicals, in my mind, this is what I told myself, musicals have characters of every age and state. You can always be in a musical, but if you're feeling the itch, and you can always write too, P.S. This is ageless, I feel.
Of course.
But I was like, I'm going to just do both, and whichever one feels more authentic to me, I'll run in that direction. And I was doing these shows, and there was an organization, I'm going to blank on the name of it, but I became friends with some people at BMI, and just they encouraged me to go to LA and write with other people. And I love co-writing. I absolutely love co-writing. I could go on and on about it, but I feel like you make friends in co-writing.
Sure,
this is all about community, which community I think is my favorite thing on the planet Earth. There's community on stage. There's community in writing rooms. There's just, and so I was just kind of discovering that you can write a song and it can feel like a therapy session. And when you finish it all together, you've created something that wasn't there before. There's something really magical about it.
Yeah.
I still think that. So that's kind of how it started to shift. And so with the Nashville thing, I did something so dumb. Oh, I did something so dumb because I think, pretty naive. I came here maybe on my first trip to Nashville, and I got in a car with a total stranger who said, I give tours. And I believed him. And he did, actually. I just believed it. And I'm like, and he took me to the Bluebird Cafe and kind of just dropped me off there. And I was like, all right. And I go to sit in the back church pew, and it was all Garth Brooks writers, but not Garth Brooks. And I'm obsessed with Garth songs. And Kim Williams, I think, was in the round. And I didn't know who these people were at first, but he was like, I helped write the song, The Dance.
Yeah.
And who knows, I know this, who knows his story? I believe it's Kim Williams, but I looked at him and it looks like he has a burn on half his face. And I thought to myself, was life-changing to me. The words of The Dance, I only heard from Garth Brooks singing them, but to listen to the songwriter who wrote it and the words, I'm glad I didn't know the way it all went and the way it all would go. I was like,
Tony Arata.
It was Tony Arata. Did Kim Williams write on it too? Or am I wrong? Oh.
I mean, I'll find out.
Okay. Was it Tony Arata? Sorry. It was Tony Arata probably. I'm like, he is
the songwriter.
Okay. Well, sorry. Thank you for correcting me. But it made me think about, did that song come from him? It was life-changing to hear the writer sing it. Life-changing. And I was like, ooh, I want to learn how to do more of this. Like,
for sure.
And just crying in a church pew in the back of the Bluebird Cafe like we all do when we have and then that I'm a huge believer in signs, and I know that you are too. And I would get all of these signs that would knock me over. I asked God to knock me over the head if I'm supposed to come to Nashville.
Yeah.
And I'll just share this story because it knocked me over the head. I was on a plane from New York to Nashville, and there was only one seat left in the middle. And I'm very nosy. I don't mean to be, but I am. And I was like, this woman was on her computer, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, am I sitting next to Beth Nielsen Chapman right now? And I was, and she wrote the song This Kiss among many other songs, right? So I just in my own way, I was like, are you Beth Nielsen Chapman? She's like, I am. And I was like, can you please tell me about your life? I want to know about your life. She's like, okay. And she just starts telling me about her life. And she starts telling me about this kiss and how she knew it was a hit and nobody believed her. And 7 years later, it became what it became.
Yeah.
And at the end, we both met at the baggage claim, and she's like, it was great talking to you. Can I grab your number? And I was like, I don't even know what's happening. And 2 months later, she said, would you like to be my guest at the Bluebird? So the very, very first time I ever performed at the Bluebird was to sing backup on This Kiss for her.
Cool.
And I got to sing my own songs too. And I met Emily West that night. It was the weirdest night. She was like sitting where you are. And it was Beth and me and her and another woman, Laurie White.
Oh,
and
cool.
I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And Jordan was there, and he was crying and I was crying. It was the whole thing. And it was such a beautiful, I was like, I think I'm supposed to be here. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So things like that.
So how many times did you play here before we met?
Not many. I don't even remember how we met, Matt.
You got me through Kyle Wilkerson. I don't know where you met him. or who?
I feel like I met Kyle through Ryan. So when I told Ryan I was moving here, he's like, I'm going to help you build a band here. And so now my brain is coming back to me. So, okay. Oh, gosh. So his friend, so bad with names.
Sure.
Played bass for me maybe 1 or 2 times. And then somehow Ryan, knew Kyle, and then Kyle called you. Is that what happened? Okay. No, so I can't remember another bass player other than you that I've worked with, unless you were like, I can't do it, and you brought someone in. Like Nigel Knopp came to you. Like, but you know what I mean? And so, but I can't remember a time, or don't want to remember a time.
Sure, of course.
I haven't played with you.
The first show that I played with you was at the Hard Rock.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember that. And Ryan came down and stayed. We stayed.
Right. Yeah.
We weren't living here yet. And we stayed with my friend Paul Umbach, who no longer lives here in Brentwood. And
So had you really played here at all before that? That was like really like it?
Yeah. You guys, and I remember my first time, maybe it was the first rehearsal with you, or maybe the third, where you're like, it's a Risa rehearsal. And I'm like, I love this guy.
Oh gosh. Stupid puns.
It's great. But you were kind of the first person in my life that I feel like really saw me and like what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. And you like took my songs and put them in an order, and you're like, by the way, don't do this, do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm down with that.
Which is so funny because like there's a gig I do sometimes now. My life is so full of like occasional gigs that just like, as they all turn, it like fills up a calendar.
Yeah.
Like, I told them about how like my whole life I've been setlist guy. And that comes from the place that comes from, for whatever stupid reason. When I was in high school, I would waste all my time in classes writing set lists for the bands that I loved.
Really?
Yeah.
That
I would
is
just like write Metallica set lists and Dave Matthews Band set lists and Jason Mraz set lists. Like I would just be thinking about that.
Whoa.
You know? Which, you know, who
knows?
In
your blood. It's in your blood.
Yeah, who knows the chicken or the egg part of it. But I had talked about how like grateful I was for my dad that he would take me to as many like concerts as he would. Because, you know, growing up in Northeast Pennsylvania, there were so many shows that were within 2 hours. So I would go see the same artist like multiple times.
Oh, wow.
You know, so many of the artists that I liked were the kind of people that weren't doing the same set nightly. They were playing the same songs, but they were switching them up and things like that. But like, it was very that way. And so I very early on learned an appreciation for how to, not even how to, but just like have a curiosity about like, well, this song sounds different when it's after this song instead of this song, because just like an energy flow that way.
You can feel like the arc of it. Yeah.
Speaking of Ryan Bull.
Yes.
We talked one time when he was playing, or about when he was playing for Billy Joel's daughter.
Yes.
And he tells this story about Billy being at a gig.
I remember this.
And writing out like a bar graph or like a line graph of how to like build the perfect set list, about how you like do it. And Ryan regretfully says at the end of it, this story, and no one ever thought to grab the napkin. Like it was like on a cocktail napkin, and like no one grabbed this napkin. And that's probably a good 10 years ago that he told me this story. And like, it has been one of my secret passions to figure out how to like find somebody connected to Billy Joel and be like, look, I heard this story. And like, I mean, Billy's not young. Be like, before he dies, I have to know. Like, I have to know what is like the Billy Joel like magic set list formula. I've never thought of it quite this way, but because we're talking about set lists and stuff, that would be the ultimate like end to the journey of like having notebooks full of set lists for my favorite bands.
I've been trying this.
Yeah, I've been working on this forever, and apparently you have the Rosetta Stone. So tell me.
He does. Yeah.
Now, of course, I have also developed, because I've told many people about this idea. I have a concession now, which is like, it's a lot easier to write the perfect set list from a flow standpoint when you have all the songs that Billy Joel has.
Oh God.
Like that's half the magic, right? It's like, well, when
having
you're using those songs, how are you gonna lose? You
can't go wrong. Yeah.
You know, they would just be such an interesting thing to do. But back to the whole point of that is so funny. I'm like at this point in my life and career where I recognize how, and you don't think this, I know that you don't think this, but like how insufferable I probably was to a lot of people when I was younger.
I don't think this at all.
I know that you don't. That's what I'm saying. It's like you're not. You are the one person that I could have here that would never own up to that. But just like I think about that sometimes, it's like, man, when I was like in my like early mid-20s, like what a terrible time that must have been to be around me.
Oh my God. Well, I've gotten to know you outside of that, and it's been really awesome. And I love continuing to know you in all the forms of your life.
That was just like 11 years ago. That was like the first time.
2016.
No, it was 2013.
Oh.
It was the first time that we played together.
We played together in 2013?
Yeah. You are so alarmed by this.
No, I'm like, right. Okay. That was the Hard Rock show?
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Yeah, that was in like a July.
It was July.
Yeah.
I remember.
Because by 2016,
I had an album.
your EP had been out for
1 year, because it came out in 2015.
That's right.
That makes sense. Okay.
So,
years or okay, got it. Well, that's exciting.
That's how
yes.
how long of a thing that's been.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's still, and it's so interesting. I'll just share. It's always evolving, and like I feel now, like I'm so excited about now because I feel like my daughter is 6 years old, which is nuts, and I'm able to really focus again on my music in a way that makes me really excited. And like the touring element of it is something I am digging into this year to like make it make sense. But like so many really cool small. Okay, I'm like looking. Do you remember the Soundry in Columbia, Maryland that we played?
Yeah.
It had closed during COVID.
Yeah, right.
Something opened there, but they kept the same sound system. It's called Encore. And I'm like, there's things where I have like pictures of us packing the place, and I'm like, and the guy's like, oh, so it's like slowly reminding people and getting back there again in a way that makes sense for us all to be a part of.
You mentioning the Maryland thing, like you kind of remain, besides the fact that you are conceding that like you have been slower as, your daughter has like come to an age that is like a manageable thing, but you work very hard to like sort of maintain community, like you were talking about community, like maintain presence and community in like 3 places, like here, New York and Maryland.
Yes.
How do you stay sane in trying to do that? Like, like accomplishment, like how do you think that is, besides it being obviously noble, to try and do, because all 3 of those things have connection for you, why is that so necessarily important? And
I think it's important for several reasons. I think once an artist, always an artist, and always growing, never the best at what you can be, always trying to become better. And these 3 places help me be better. I feel whenever I call New York is my boyfriend. It's like New York is my boyfriend, okay? Yeah. And I don't know why. It's just always been that way. And New York literally carries me, and the energy there is different than Nashville, but I love the energy of Nashville too. Totally different. So Maryland, I'm jumping around like a crazy person, but Maryland is where I grew up. It is my home. If I love my parents, but they don't travel as much. Sure. If we don't get back home, they miss it. They miss my daughter growing up. So that's not okay, right? So there is I grew up in an arts scene that, thank God, still exists, and they value it so much there that I can kind of pop in and be like, I'll be playing at this place, can see my family, blah, blah, blah. And people in your high school that, you went to, they still live there, and they love art and they want to support it, and that's cool. And DC has some really awesome places that have popped up recently, and Baltimore too. And so it's a fun little hub to play. New York, it's like these little pieces of your family, even though you might not have a blood family there. Yeah. I never, like this past summer, I haven't played a show in New York in a really long time. And I played the Green Room 42 in July. And it was incredible. And I'm trying to build something there so that we can all go like full band there. It was literally just people who played, and I hired a guitar player, and I was like, okay. And hard for me because I know the sounds that we make as a full band, just being real. So it's so hard. I'm like, you're not getting the whole thing, but you're getting something good. But like, so I'm like, but it was good. And we, you know what, just being real, we did not sell out, but we got close. And I was like, after not being there for so long, it just showed people we need nights of joy. We just do. All of us need a night of joy. And so, the more nights I can make this way, the better. And it's like when I'm sitting in a show, when I'm standing on stage, when I'm with you guys, when I'm with a guitar player, I feel the most authentically myself.
Yeah.
I feel right. And I feel like we're all hanging out and having a connection. And I remember a whole nother topic for another time, but like when I became a mom, it took me a second. It's a whole, it's like growing another appendage. It's like something you've never done before.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're trying to wave your way through it, doing the best job you can. And you're like, but where am I? Where am I?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm growing. Oh, this feels uncomfortable.
Well, there's so much talk about like people, I've heard numerous people talk about like when you become a parent for the first time, like you have to like mourn your non-parent self like a little bit. You know,
of
like,
course. And I wish more people talked about that. You absolutely do. And then all the things, right? Something truly beautiful happens where you come to a point where you're kind of maybe you're so proud of what you're doing. It's hard, but you're also like, and now I can turn to the part of me that really fills me up, non-parental, which for me is performing.
Yeah.
And like, I can finally be on stage and not be in a panic if my kid needs to eat in 2 hours. Like I used to be, I'm just like, oh no, I'm on stage. She's fine. She's eating French fries. We're all going to be good tonight. And and then having her, literally my daughter is a stage manager, and you will see, like, she's like, Mom, that person was too loud. I'm like, okay, well, guess what? I said to her, I'm like, you cannot tell them that. I'm like, when you're on stage, it is the most free feeling you can tell me. I took her to the local to have chicken fingers by the bar one time, and we were listening to him, and she was like, why does that person say the same thing over and over and over? I'm like, okay, that's a chorus of a song. And so she's just like learning, and it's real, her brain is just going. And I know that there's an artist in there, but I think it's so fascinating. I think she's more of like, we're going to get this done. It's going to be, it's like she is a stage manager. And I'm like, great. I actually need that because my brain doesn't really do that. But back to your thing of like, New York fuels me in that there is I realize that I'm in love with hope, 100% in love with hope. And I believe that every day you wake up, there is hope in the day.
Ugh, I don't know about that.
I know because I know it's you, but there, like on this New York corner that I live on, you can turn the corner and anything is possible that day. That's just the hope of the day. That's just what I believe. So I feel that there. In Nashville, I feel like there are so many of us writers here. There's so much creative energy here that there's a slow down here where you can actually hear yourself hear the song. And that doesn't happen. I don't feel that way in New York City. It's like totally different.
I would agree with that.
You can hear it here, and like you can really connect here in a different way than, oh my God, am I going to pay my rent on time in New York City? It's a whole nother energy, right? So
I mean, there are all kinds of factors. Like it's funny that you said about New York being your boyfriend. Amanda knows how much like I love New York, and like you said that, and I was like, yeah, New York is kind of like my slutty mistress.
Do it. Yes.
You know? Like,
yes. And you'll have more nights of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Just like that, and it's been that way for a long time because, like I never, sure, I'll own up to people. Like I, in so many ways, like consider myself a New Yorker. I never lived in New York, but like my parents are Brooklyn people, so we were there a ton and all these things. And so it feels very homey to me. And then all through college and stuff, like the amount that I would just go into the city, like from Boston, it's just like
so easy.
Because could I probably have spent more time in Boston exploring things that I like missed out on? I do always say that, like when I was at Berkeley, I kind of was in the same like 10 block radius for like 90% of the time.
Oh, wow.
And Boston isn't a gigantic city, but it's a big city.
It is.
And I mean, I happen to be in a really great part of town to be, hanging around in, but like I would just go to New York all the time to eat, to go see shows, to go like, there were like a couple great jazz clubs in Boston, but like not like in New York. And so I would just go all the time. And so, it always kind of felt like the mistress like that
for sure.
I never had, and then coming to the South and being like, I don't know about this, and especially when I moved here, like even by the time you started coming here or more regularly, I felt a little better about Nashville. But like in 2009, when I moved here, I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know that like.
What was your deciding factor? Cost of living or at the time? Or?
Yeah, some of it was cost of living. Some of it was that, I was hearing that it was an easier scene to like break into and be like actually making money solely like as a thing that you do. And then I had a couple of my like closer friends in college were moving down here. And so it's like, well, I'd have people and like I'd have a few people and like that would be nice. And so that's just sort of like how it happened. But yeah, then like coming down here, it's just like, oh boy. And
it's funny, I saved up money working in a dinner theater and I moved to Harlem and I on Craigslist, because at the time that's what you did. I don't even know that I would look now, but there was like a room for rent on 146th Street and I did that. And Jordan laughs, but it's true. I became friends with a guy on the corner whose name was Sylvester, who said to me, do you want to know who still sells drugs on your street? I'm like, I'm good, Sylvester, I'm good. And I would just kind of walk home and it would smell like sweet potato pie on my block. It was absolutely divine. And I just remember, I can't believe I'm sharing this story, but this actually happened. I think someone was murdered. I lived in I guess it was a brownstone on the third floor. Oh my God, all these things are coming back to me. I lived on a brownstone on the third floor. My name is Risa. There was a dog below me whose name was Rifa. I can't make this up. And so people would get us confused.
Incredible.
And I'm like, I am a person, not the dog. Anyway, to our right townhouse, somebody was pushed off the roof and died. And Jordan was like, I think we should move to Brooklyn to this place. And it turned out kind of cool because the people that were living there were like, Jordan and I joked, if these people leave their apartment and move back to California, we should live there. It was like simultaneously the timing. Yeah. They were like, we're moving back to California. I'm like, great, because there's a dead person in the street. Oh my God. And that
probably hadn't even rained yet for the chalk to wash away.
It was, I was like, not going to walk to the right. And anyway, Jordan's like, I think it's time. And it was. And I absolutely have to say, I used to think that Brooklyn was far. It's not. It's actually really everything is within like a 15-minute subway ride to the center of New York City. So that's been pretty cool. I don't know why I went there, but that's where I went.
No, that's fine. I was thinking about you saying about that guy Sylvester. Saying about the people that still sell drugs. Around that time would have still been the time that if you went to like the bodegas with the yellow awnings that you could get drugs.
Really? I didn't even know that.
That was like the way
that's
to
a thing?
know.
Oh God, I did not even know.
At least for a long time it was.
Oh.
I don't know if it's still that way, but it was like, if you went to a yellow awning bodega,
I did not
you
know
were probably able to get whatever you wanted.
Oh my God. When we moved to Brooklyn, there were 3 guys named Phil. I might have told you a story. 3.
No.
Okay. There were 3 guys named Phil who sat on a bench and they'd be like, I live in a building that there's no dishwasher or washer dryer. So I would always carry my stuff like Santa Claus to the place to wash clothes and wash my clothes and bring them back. So I'm doing it. And they'd be like, hey, Baltimore, come sit down with us. I'm like, okay. And
maybe I did this, but I don't think I knew that they were all named Phil.
They're all named Phil. 3 guys named Phil. And they were like, we used to run this joint. I'm like, yeah. I was just sit and listen to stories. And I apparently in our neighborhood there, Judy Garland would come sing at bars and just incredible things and just the history.
Yeah, but that neighborhood is that's the thing. That neighborhood is so close. Like it's different than being down like, where my parents are from in like Bay Ridge, where like you've got to go like, I mean, again, I never lived in Bay Ridge, but like spent so much time there to where it's like early on in my childhood, I learned the difference between going to the city and going to see our relatives in Bay Ridge because like it's not like fatally far. Like you're not going to like waste away on the subway going from Bay Ridge into the city, but it's far enough that like you have to make an effort to do it. But from where like your neighborhood is in New York, you don't have to do anything to go in the city.
It worked out well. But that's my heart can be, your heart can be in a million places at once. And it's like, how do you just have to make it work for you, and you can make it work. And it doesn't mean it's not exhausting, but it's really fulfilling to say I will never leave New York. New York is always in my blood. I will, and then you can regrow yourself in New York too. Like this past, they asked us back. We have a show in October there, October 19th. Same idea. And I was like, okay, well, how can we get more? How do you get more people to come out? Your brain just starts.
Which is hilarious because that you say that. And like part of like when we were just in New York was, but just what I said to Amanda, I was like, I wonder how many more times I'm going to get to go to New York before I die.
You said that?
Yeah.
Well, come on, September. I was going to talk to you about that.
That was how I framed it. I was like, I don't know. I just love it so much. But like, given what life is like, I was like, how many more times am I?
But the airport, just to shout this out, just for anyone that, like, right now, Nashville to New York are $64 one-way tickets.
That's crazy.
And when I just did this show, a guy named Kenny Sharp sings a bunch on these shows I do. And he's Soul Guy, and he's like, I just said, can you do it? He's like, let me look at flights. It's $64. I'll see you on that day. And I'm like, okay, like, just crazy. Yeah. So it is doable. It's cheaper to fly from here to New York than from here to Maryland. It's crazy.
Some of that is just hub way and stuff like that. But I was going to say, funny enough, that one advantage that you also have is that none of the three places suck either. Like, I love that part of Maryland, like, that has that, like, colonial American vibe, you know, in plenty of those towns and stuff, and like rural without being country. Like, it is whatever the next ring out from suburbia is what like that mostly does. And so like outside of dealing with weather, when you're like in that part of the country in certain times of the year, like none of those places are, you know, like bad places to be in. They're
accessible, like by train or by, it's not hard to get to.
Yeah, well, they're accessible, but I guess I really mean like they all have energy in a way that, like, you know, it's different than being from like middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Sorry to anyone from Nebraska that's listening, but you know, like if it was that, then it would probably be like, well, I'm not going to necessarily be there that often, but like all of those places are worthwhile places to like to be around and stuff like that. You know, in talking about like these shows, like the Anzi Blues shows and things like that, and also some like work that you've done in like helping people get booked, you know, for gigs and stuff like in that world too. Like you sort of have like sprouted this other limb of like helping be a facilitator like for other people. And what is that like?
I think during COVID, we all sat there. I had a 2-year-old during COVID, and it's really scary. And, you know, for them to be like, stay indoors, I'm like, not possible. Yeah. And so honestly, you could find me. This is so sad, but real. I went to Americano Coffee every day. They handed me coffee through a window. And then Liel and I played on the dock of the beer place across the street, the beer garden. We pretended that was a playground because you weren't allowed on any playgrounds. Okay. Yeah. So that's how we spent COVID. I'm like, and I was like, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to perform for the rest of my life. I'm going to be in this industry for the rest of my life. But also all shows are canceled. So what am I doing? I need to figure out how can I stay in music too? And Gig Finesse is this company that I work with. And I was like, how do you give back to your community? I want to always stay in this community. And this thing popped up where it's like, you can help. They needed a Nashville person. And I'm like, I can help. And it's been so fulfilling. It's been, because I just feel like I'm giving back to my community every day. And then also, it's given me this newfound confidence to call all the places that we open for Ronnie at and be like, what's up? Remember, it's time now. And people are, I mean, even though I feel like this is probably a newish mom thing, you feel like so behind, you're actually not behind, because it's like people are just now, like I would consider myself, and hopefully I'll grow, but like a C-list artist, I would consider myself that. Yeah. Fine.
Whatever.
And like, I feel like they're just.
I don't think those are real things.
Are they not real?
Well, they are. Like, but they're.
But like as far as like booking wise, I feel like now they're like, oh, right, Risa, where like, you should come now. Like, I feel like that's the momentum that's happening. It's like, it's your turn. Let's go. You know, and I'm like, cool, let's go. So it's like, again, like helping other people get these gigs has given me the confidence to be like, and I can do this too.
I think for the rest of our lives, we will look at COVID. It's weird how like the height of that was 4 years ago, you know, but that everybody still talks about it. You know, like it's still a thing that like has to like come up, or just what life was like, because it's easy to forget that it was that way. But then to think about like, you know, this like chunk of time that happened. Do you think that because you were just saying about like having a 2-year-old, but now that she's 6, like it's a real like time for you to do stuff. Like, do you feel like, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, like if that's the right way, I'll say that. Do you feel like you got lucky that the pandemic happened, like the pandemic shut music down at a time that was going to be the most detrimental to you being able to facilitate like
100%.
a music career.
Yes.
That like the time when that was going to be at like its biggest like conflict was a time that you didn't have to worry about that.
I
because
didn't.
It was,
I felt I 100% feel that way. 100% feel that way because I was able to stumble through new motherhood while everything was shut down, and I was like, oh. And then it also made me see the beauty and value of the people that have helped me get to this point.
Sure.
And who could have maybe very easily have been like, well, all right, but did not. They were like, yeah, you're going to continue on. You're just going to you're going to do this, you know? Yes. And I feel like what COVID did was it just leveled the playing field completely for like the touring world as it, you know, because there wasn't any really.
Right,
and
of course.
It's like, okay, anything. I really feel like a lot of people took that opportunity and was like, anything is possible. I know people like Mary Cutter, for example, who I adore, who was like, well, then I'm going to write 4 songs a day every single day on Zoom. And she did that and ended up getting a publishing deal pretty quickly after COVID let up or whatever, because she had produced so much work during that time. Like to each their own. I didn't have that opportunity because I was watching Tier, but now we do. And like, I just still feel like anything is possible. Even right now, I feel like anything is possible.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, and I think what is such an interesting byproduct of that. I mean, I've talked about this on the show before with other people about like where everybody like landed after COVID, but it's such a diverse set of things. Like I've talked to people about how like the first few months of COVID, I didn't touch a bass like at all. I didn't play at all, but that's because I had spent years at that point playing all the time.
Yes.
Without an ability to have a break or something like that, or find out ways that I wanted to like focus different, you know, in different directions or whatever. But it was just because it was like, well, I keep getting called, so I'm going to go play. And it was just so many nights of that. And it was just like, oh, cool. Like I felt bad sometimes because everyone's like, oh, I'm going to finish all these projects that like were backed up. And I'm like, nah, I'm just not going to play at all, you know? And then it started to be fun, but it also made me think about things, you know, other things that just weren't there. And I say that to bring up that like, there are so many different ways that it shook out for so many different people.
That's true.
You know, it wasn't just one way. And maybe I'm biased because I, you know, I'm not around a lot of people that are just office workers, you know, like I don't hang around with a lot of bank tellers who was just like, oh, well, we're just out of a job. You know, it was that everyone, it just like changed the hustle in a lot of ways.
It definitely changed the hustle. And I'll say one more thing about it too. It's like, also come to find out, like, I think it was heartbreaking in a way for artists, right? Because all of our Broadway shut down. Shows stopped, and it's like, wait, artists matter. Like we really matter. Like we're like the therapists. We're like your escape, you know, in a way. But it was like, whoa, we matter, but right now we don't matter. It was just like very weird. Like
well, the thing that you said something before, and I was thinking about this, but now is really the time for it to be brought up. Is like entertainment is not threatened by economic crisis. Even like during like the Great Depression, like movies boomed, all these things because people needed things to do to not be involved in that. A pandemic is different because there are not opportunities to do that. And like people got real innovative and there were all these different ways, you know, like we did a bunch of live stream shows and stuff like that. And they were fun. Yeah, they were great. But it was just an interesting thing of like, how do we do this? Because it wasn't as though there was a lack of clamoring for it. It was just not possible to do a thing that happens where there's just a shitty economy and then, well, like we can still go to the movies, you know, like, I mean, remember like one of the first things that happened during the pandemic was Tiger King. Everybody watched Tiger King.
It was pretty great and weird.
Yeah, but it was just one of those things where it's like, oh, here, it was the first thing that like came out that like everybody just caught wind of, but everybody was at home. So everybody watched it.
That's right.
You know, and it
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's just a way to recognize that like there was no way that entertainment would be stopped. It just couldn't. Again, like I said, in other times, it looks exactly the same. It just might not have had the same money machine around with it, whereas this changed all of that. And
you can be in a live theater. It was like, nah, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I've talked about how we went to see the Anthony Bourdain documentary at the Belcourt, like,
oh, wow.
And that was a time when, they were only allowing like 60 people in and stuff like that. But it was wild because, like, that's a very sad story. And like when it reaches its like climax of sadness, you could hear that everybody in the theater was crying.
Oh, man.
But it was because it was just this like
60.
small thing. It might not have been the same if it was packed.
That's true.
And sometimes that's the thing too, is like as good as it is to be able to like pack people into entertainment spaces, like there's also something about like breathing room
really special about
like that. Smaller things sometimes. I don't know. Just kind of riffing.
No, yeah, you're doing good, Matt. You're doing good.
That's how this goes, is that sometimes, I don't really like, there's very little plan.
No, I love that.
Like, discussions go like because the best stuff comes from,
just chatting it up.
Yeah, from running it through. So I don't know. You've been talking about it a bunch, but like, what do you think? What do you think you're doing next?
Okay, so I've found through a friend, and I'm curious to see what happens. There's a music platform called Even that pays the artist first, which is interesting. And you kind of do you put a song out on that exclusively for a certain amount of time, and then it goes through, like, I'm using like Symphonic for distribution. So I'm basically going to put up singles for the next however long. I'm going to keep writing, and we should actually do some more stuff together. Look at this beautiful room. Okay, I like this. This
is a great vocal room. That's it has worked out well that way.
Yes, and so like I have about I think I have 6 to 8 songs that have not come out yet that I'm doing, and then I need more. And so I'm going to try to do every 8 weeks something new off of Even to build, and then really it's just, I have a song called Good Advice that's coming out, and I want to do a tour called the Good Advice Tour, and then like, but make it like interactive where like people from the audience can also give advice, and like we're giving advice, and it's just kind of a fun little silly thing. We're just talking to each other and we're having a show. And so my whole thing is to take the show that we do, old songs and new songs, and bring it into black box theaters of theaters that have subscribers, and just kind of introduce ourselves. I have a friend that's doing that, actually. Shout out to Anthony Nunziata. He's doing it really, really well right now. And it's just being authentically you. Like, he has great original songs, but he also has a love of Italian arias and Italian music. Yeah. And so he's doing like, I'm going to botch the name of it, but like Italian love songs or whatever. And people are showing up, and he's just killing it. And that's awesome. And a lot of them, ironically, are in like the Robinson Grand and places that we've played opening for Ronnie in these beautiful theaters that have black boxes. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be doing that. So it's just like reintroducing and reminding people like the Good Advice through the Good Advice Tour. So yeah,
that sounds interesting. Pretty much since COVID, and before, like, most of your song output has been singles. How have you found that as opposed to like putting out bodies of songs at once?
Truly, you'll laugh, but it's truly, I wasn't paying so much attention to it. It was more the live show that I was paying attention to. But I feel really called now to like watch the building of things. Yeah. I guess, I algorithms and all the things that I don't quite understand, but like, I know that if you are consistent in any way, consistency is key. Yeah. And so it would be a beautiful thing. Gosh, I would love to drop a 10-song record. That'd be so phenomenal. And see as an experiment, because I haven't done that in forever. Yeah. But I know that to continue to build new fans and new friends, it's got to. I think singles might be the way to go.
I just don't. I don't think that. And as someone who loves albums, I just don't think there's really ever like any point now, unless you have something like cohesive to say throughout.
Well, I want to say, just to jump in, like, if you're releasing these singles, but they really are part of a larger album, maybe at your show, you're selling a beautiful physical record.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, that's a whole another thing is like so many things about the modern music landscape are about, not in the negative way, taking advantage of your fans.
Oh God.
That's why I say not negative, but the idea of being like, when you have people that are fans and you can offer them something, you know, like different, not different, but like, you know, the idea that like box sets sell so well for artists, but it's because they are capitalizing on the fact that like there is demand for things like that.
Yeah.
Like it brings like a fan closer to the artistic experience. But all those things are just like, I just don't think that there's room anymore for just a collection of songs that don't really have anything to do with each other and calling it an album, you know, like outside of a thing you're talking about, like making a special presentation out of it. But if it's going to just be like a standard presentation, like I'm putting out an album, here it is. And you're just like, well, there's that. And you can't like find the through line through it. Then there's like not really a point.
I'm with you. Yeah. So
there are times for both, but just like, hopefully, you know, maybe one of the positives of like the modern landscape is that thing of like, it's okay to just put out singles.
It is okay. Yeah, it is okay. I just feel like at this point anyway, for me personally, like it just gives me something to look forward to, that there's something coming next. Like,
instead of being like, yep, okay, I put this out. We'll see you in 3 years.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I want to, you know, and it also just from a live performance part, it gives you something to continuously talk about to other venues. This is me putting on my like business hat, like, hey, coming out with a new single and this, but this is what's going on with this, and just something to talk about.
Also allows you to go, you know, back to the same spaces and not be putting on the same stupid show. You know, like a number of times, like where it's just like, yep, this is the same thing that happened here last time. Hope someone, like that. If there's constantly something new, then you can sort of like spiral outward by.
Which is this other thing I've just will share that I've been doing called, I call it Stories, Sips, and Songs. And it's like 6 different writers, 6 different genres of music or whatever, you know, different people bringing their own story. And then you get to hear what other people are doing. You get to meet new people. It's really fueled me to have that evening. It feels, again, my favorite things I think are eating dessert and singing live and having community. And I think that was a big shift because, you know, when you first move to a place and you get some really cool things happening and you're like, oh, okay, I'm rising, I'm going to make it, whatever that means. And then you come to a point where you're like, what is making it really? What does it mean? And it means something different to every single person. And for me personally, it's just like, if I can get myself touring consistently, not a ton, but like consistently, like, and I'm reaching the people I'm meant to be reaching, I'm great. Like I'm doing good. And like consistently creating new things that sound good, that's good too.
Yeah, of course.
But it feel, you know, that to me will feel like I'm contributing in a way that is that feels meaningful. Yeah,
I'm all about that. Well, thank you so much for hanging out and sitting down and talking with me. Yeah, I'm glad that you were that you were up for it.
I love you. Thanks for having me.
I love you too. So thank you. Many thanks to Risa for coming to my place and having a chat. In a lot of ways, that is the perfect discussion for me. A little nostalgia, a little theorizing, a little laughter, and a little serious talk. All the good stuff. Thank you so much for listening to Matt O'Donnell Wants to Know. Next time is episode 20. That is going to be wild. I said at the beginning I wasn't going to gush until then. Am I gushing? I don't know. I don't care. Regardless, I am only at episode 20 because you are listening to it. I would have gotten frustrated and given up long ago if you were not out there. Thank you so much. Please remember to do all the podcast things. Write me a review. Rate the show. Subscribe. Like. Share the social stuff. Do whatever you can to put it in the ear holes of one or more, preferably more than one, of your friends. You can follow the Instagram account for the show. That is at Matt O'Donnell Wants to Know. My page is at Matt O'Donnell. If you have questions, comments, concerns, complaints, praises, funny memes, I will take funny memes by email. That is mattodonnellwantstoKnow@gmail.com. There are stickers for the show that I just randomly hand out to people. They are better than a business card. And when someone goes, "Oh, you have a podcast?" I say, "Yes, I do. Here's a sticker." That's how you can remember that I told you that I had one, and then you can look it up. If you want one of those stickers because you're not going to run into me, just send an email to that email I just mentioned. You might have to hit the 15-second back button a couple times, and I will send you one gratis if you just throw me your address. But for real, that's going to do it for this time. Please take very good care of yourself. I'll see you back here for episode 20. And remember, the best answer to a question is usually another question. See ya!